evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the world of VGamingJunkie news. There's no dross here, nothing but pure gaming-related meatiness. It's all about the electronic good stuff as we dive deep in all that's new in the various interactive virtual worlds. It's fitting that the new 3D studio, at least for October, is in a crypt because we start out today's news with funeral proceedings. Specifically, it's a funeral for the Nintendo 3DS. First released in 2011, it has finally been officially discontinued. It was a good system, even though it was rough at first, it ended up rising to the occasion. Where the Vita just sorta crashed and burned due to Sony giving up on it, Nintendo didn't give up on the 3DS when things were rough. After a price drop and some desperately needed games, it really turned around, and even though the end was obviously near for the 3DS when the Switch first came out, it still managed to persist another 3 years. Rest in peace, oh 3DS, you are a fine system. Even though 3D is kind of inherently a gimmick, the 3DS at least managed to use it well. Nintendo finally got it right after 15 years when the Virtual Boy flopped. However, while the 3DS has perished, Left 4 Dead 2 just got some life breathed into it in the form of a new Last Stand update. By the time this video is up, I will have already live streamed it. My overall thoughts are that it's a pretty good map. Nothing super great, I personally like the Dark Carnival more thematically, but it was still pretty good. Even on normal, the gasoline retrieval was a bit brutal, but I managed to get through it. I'm glad I decided to check it out. It's always a fun game to play in general, and it's good to see new content being made for it. And speaking of new content, Nintendo is going to be adding Minecraft Steve to Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Well, and Alex too, essentially the female alternative to Steve that came around later, but let's be real, Steve's the iconic one. It's interesting to see to what extent Nintendo is now allowing third parties into Smash Bros, although Banjo-Kazooie got in, so it's probably not too far out of left field. Now maybe we can get the Doom Slayer into Smash Bros. I'm just saying, a final Smash with the classic Doom HUD at the bottom, the BFG first-person sprite, and HUD face that grins when you get a knockout would be amazing. It would seem the Stadia version of Baldurs Gate is going to be adding a unique feature in an attempt to justify the Stadia's existence, the ability for YouTubers to steer choices in the game like dialogue choices. While that sounds neat, it might be a bit snappier than it otherwise would be since the game itself has to be streamed to the player regardless. I wouldn't consider it enough to justify the service. It actually sounds pretty similar to something like Twitch plays Pokemon Blue, may the Helix Fossil live forever in our hearts. It could be amusing though to go on one of those supported live streams to see how chaotic you can make it. That's usually the appeal of those, and at least it's free to watch a live stream. And speaking of interesting features, Nintendo is apparently making a new Mario Kart for the Switch called Home Circuit. It promises an integration into reality with the tracks, like putting down some arrow sign to point the track forward and real-world obstacles along the way. How it's going to do this, I honestly can't tell. I assume it's going to use augmented reality calculations like the 3DS already had, but how it creates the tracks will be interesting to see. I noticed that there's toys visible in the trailer, so maybe it somehow maps things out using some kind of remote-controlled toy car with a camera or something, but I imagine that wouldn't be the cheapest solution. Still, I look forward to seeing more about it. And as always, this segment concludes with upcoming game release dates for the following week. The 5th sees Foregone release on PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. Baldurs Gate 3 for PC and Stadia, Nickelodeon Karts Racers 2 Grand Prix for consoles, and Overcrowded Commute 'em Up for PC release on the 6th. The 8th has quite a number of releases, starting with Blastin' for PC VR and Game Dev Tycoon for Switch. This is in addition to Iconfell and Mortal Kombat 11's Aftermath All Hallows Eve skin pack for all 4 major platforms. Finally, Ride 4 for PC, Xbox One, and PS4, and The Uncertain Light at the End for PC, also on the 8th. Finally, the 9th sees Ben 10 Power Trip and The Survivalist on the 4 major platforms, as well as FIFA 21 for PC, PS4, and Xbox One. This week's freebie on the Epic Store is Picanico up through the 8th. It actually kind of reminds me of Dumb Ways to Die with its simple art style. And that concludes this week's news show. I hope you appreciate the radical thematic change. It's the month of fright, which is essentially my gimmick for the month of October in celebration of Halloween. I'll even be live streaming Scream Fortress, the Team Fortress 2 Halloween event, Monday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as per the usual time. Subscribe and take a big munch out of that bell icon if you want to keep notified of it and other videos I do. A like is appreciated, and I'll see you next Saturday.